everyone, today we're gonna be doing a lesson on understanding f of x. This may seem pretty simple, but for some reason people tend to get these kind of questions very much confused. So yes, everything I'm gonna say here is gonna sound a bit dumb, so please just stick with me and it will make sense in the end, okay? So what you're used to seeing is probably something like y equals to 3x. I'm going to use an example to explain this. Another way that you could write this is f of x equals to 3x. The point that I want to make is that f of x is just a notation, meaning it's just a name, it's just a way of writing, if that makes sense. The reason why someone might try to choose to write f of x equals to 3x instead of y equals to 3x is because of this. Well, every time I want you to find what a y value is for a different x value, I would have to tell you, in this case, right, looking at just this side, I would have to tell you when x equals to 1, what is y? When x is equals to negative 5, what is y? I have to go through and tell you each individual x value and then y value, versus for f of x equals to 3x, I can just write f1 equals to 3x, and you just understand that I'm supposed to plug 1 into this x. Does that make sense? The way that you write this simply makes you understand right away that you're supposed to plug 1 into this x value. So you go 3, 1 equals to 3. F of negative 5 would be 3 times negative 5 equals to negative 15, and so forth. So anything could be in this x bracket and therefore needs to be plugged into here as well. So some examples might include, f of a plus b, then I would just write 3a plus b, and I might distribute it so it's 3a plus 3b. It could also be f of x minus 6, and I would put in here 3 times x minus 6 equals to 3x minus 18, and so forth. So now that we understand this, let's move on to an example. Here in this question talks about g of x. Now, one thing I want to note is that it can come in any form. This notation can be g of x, it could be a of x, it could be b of x. That's more like a personal choice, but people tend to use g of x and f of x. Okay? Now, let's read this. The function g is defined by the equation above. It's called a function. This is just names for you to remember. Which of the following points in the xy plane is an x-intercept of the graph of the equation y equals to g of x? I like to underline the parts that are important. So in this case, I'm going to underline x-intercept because that's what we're asked for. Which of the following points, so we're asked for some points, which makes sense if you look at the answer choices. And then it has to be on this equation, y equals to g of x. Okay. Let's think first, what is an x-intercept? An x-intercept is where you cross or touch the x-axis. So for example, if you had a little graph, it would be here. If you cross it, this would be the x-intercept. These would be the x-intercepts, and so forth. And you can notice that the y value is always 0 because this is the x-axis, so the y value has to be 0. That gives me a clue on what my next step should be. So it says we need to find a point. So one of these points that shows the x-intercept, which means y has to be 0 at that point. So we're going to substitute 0 here and get 2x minus 2. Does that make sense? Because this g of x is just a y, right? And at this point, the y is 0 because it's on the x-axis, which is why I put 0 here. I get 2x is, add 2 on both sides, is 2. And you know that 2 to the power of 1 makes 2, so x is therefore 1. Great. So let's look at these answer choices. Which one of them are possible? This one is not possible, not possible. Oh, this is a 1 for the x value, and this is not possible. This now makes sense. 1 comma g of 1. G of 1 is just telling you the y value when g is 1, which makes sense with what we just talked about here, about how f of x is just g of x, f of x. This is all just like a notation, okay? Let's do another question, because these kind of this topic comes in a lot of different forms. You have to understand that basic concept to be able to answer them and be used to the different kind of questions you might be given, okay? So for the function f, if f of 3x equals to x minus 6 for all values of x, what is the value of 6? At first glance, this might be a bit overwhelming, but what I would notice here is that instead of f of x, they put f of 3x, and that is x minus 6, okay? So I would try to find how 3x and 6 are related. So what I mean is 3x equals to 6, right? That means x needs to be 2 in order to achieve this 3x plus 6 business. So that means f of 6 is when this x value here is 2 minus 6, and you would get negative 4. I can do this because I understand that this is a notation. This is one way of writing, and when I write this, I know it's x minus 6, and this is another way of writing, and this writing is asking me to give me the y value where x is equal to 6. I figured that out by recognizing this relationship that 3x equals to 6, then x must be 2, which means I have to plug in 2 here in order to get f6, right? And that's how I get the answer.